Hashtag Ting open. All right, so this is going to be a best of 5, not a best of 3. Hopefully you guys are used to that at this point, but still we are apparently the only ones doing this, so not tooting our own horns, but just trying to make sure everyone's fully aware of what's going on. Score will always be displayed there in the bottom left. Already with a bit of odd pylon placement, not to go without note. In the bottom right side is going to be Team Liquid's Red Protoss Mana.
In the top left, as the blue Zerg, he is Nerchio.
So I just realized audio levels, of course, are going to be a little bit off, as I have to adjust sounds because our sub day made things a little bit strange. I was going to comment, though, this is something where you're playing against Nerchio, someone who, while maybe not conventionally always early pooling, can and will. And if you do this pylon out here against an early pool, against a gamble, you're going to die.
Yeah. Even if you have enough minerals with the accelerated economy to throw down buildings, it's not exactly a small wall off. So you also might not scout correctly until last, which would have been a problem. This only scouted second, so it is a bit risky, but I think we see this more and more, and they seem to be capable of dealing with it. So we've seen some other players put the pylon at the bottom of the ramp to start that diagonal wall off, for instance. And of course, you still see people with the the high ground wall off. It's just I don't know. I mean, a bit of luck.
I understand the pros to it. You get this base on lockdown a lot easier. You get 2 bases to mine off a lot more comfortably. You're not worried about this weird diagonal wall off. That's not even a full wall off. You'll have straight up a full wall off. So for Mana, I think doing this, while a little bit risky, is not going to hurt him here in this game. But against if Lirlac was game 3 or 4, I would actually really be scolding him type thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think starting off the first game either with like extreme cheese or extreme macro can both be like good ideas. But Monday wasn't even that risky with it. He'd thrown on a gateway and then a nexus. But regardless, I did say that Nerchio vetoed Dusk Towers, and I really like that veto, not only because I don't like the map personally. I think it creates too many games that remind me a lot about Heart of the Swarm. I think it's also just a good anti-pick for Protoss, like Nerchio, He looks at the map pool and it's like the one map that all the Protosses are like, yeah, we can do something with this, and he's like, nope.
Well, if you recall, as Nerchio specifically versus Morrow that went to that hour-long game that led to Nerchio just not being able to win no matter what he did. And I can imagine that's left some scars on him. But it's funny, right? Like, Mana and Nerchio are both these players. We always talk about this for the matchup where I feel like there's a clock on both sides of this for what they can do to win. But I feel like this is one of those few times that clock doesn't really apply. Like, Mana's actually pretty good at using things like disruptors and warp prisms and not getting conventionally stuck in like that 7 immortal army that either does or dies. The same thing goes for Nerchio. Like, he's very good at using Ravagers. He knows how to execute his all-ins, but he doesn't rely on them. So it'll be interesting to see how this series goes, because this is, like, again, one of those few I feel like the golden rule doesn't apply to.
It should be a very fun series. Mana has showcased us some extreme cheese, mostly in PvP as we've seen, but also in PvZ, like, walling off on Central Protocol, that type of stuff, as well as just has good macro. And yeah, exactly. Bringing out that Blink Disruptor composition as opposed to Mass Immortal Charge Lot, that would be really fun and definitely a change up. I mean, we see it from a couple Protosses so far, but it doesn't seem like it's a choice quite yet. It's like, it almost feels like 1 or 2 Protosses do it, and then the other one else is like, I don't know, I like my Immortals, so I'm going to hold off from that. So like Naniwa, of course, got through his group actually, not exactly easily, but first, which was really surprising, off the back of a lot of that Blink Stalker attack versus Zerg, which, who did we see try that later on and then was not nearly as successful?
Oh,
God, I know
you're asking the wrong person who's done
right. I know it was like it must have been like Friday or something, because I remember it specifically, and I was just like, it just wasn't working. Like, whatever they kept on trying to do with Blink Stalkers, it just wasn't hitting, or the control wasn't there or something. And Naniwa just made it look great, and other Protoss just made it look like, oh, that's why people are doing it 100% of the time anymore. It's not Heart of the Swarm.
Actually, it's funny bringing up Naniwa, not to reference any of his playstyles here, but just to note, Mana is the only other possible Protoss player to get out of the round of 32. If he wins his group, whether it's first or second place today, he will be the second Protoss player. But we have a very real, very actual situation where Naniwa might be the only Protoss going into the round of 16.
Yeah, that would be balanced. After
Yeah,
all.
we'll dedicate the round of 16 to David Kim, is what we'll do. Alright, so Mana's going to come across with this Warp Prism. The Adepts are going to be kind of cool to see. Of course, there's lots of Lings waiting, so it's not likely to get too much done. Tries to focus the Queen, so the Warp Prism has a bit more maneuverability, but unfortunately not going to be the case. Nerchio, by the way, it's worth noting, I didn't realize how his layer's only just now coming down. Guess I'm just so used to people rushing at them mutas, but
Well, yeah, casting so many ZDZ.
yeah, ranged weapon upgrade is going to be the weapon of choice here.
Yeah, it is going to go into that standard game, it looks like, of Roach, Ravager, Hydra versus Charged Out Archon. Mana does start a Stargate at a pretty odd time, you know, it's not super early, it's not much later on a double Stargate, because he anticipates Broodlords, obviously, we're not anywhere close to that yet, but just right in the middle, you know, and I actually really like this choice if it's going to be for just an Orgul or two, for revelating the lurkers. I think it's an actually almost essential tool to have, because observers just aren't cutting it when Zergs realize they can snipe them so easily with Hydras or Corruptors, depending on what style they're playing. But of course, Nerchio is not going to Aspire at all, actually. It's very interesting getting both attack upgrades. We see this before from him. I believe it was in that Morrow game, actually. And then Infestation Pit as well.
Yeah, and that Infestation Pit led to some really cool neural parasite attempts, which... Well, Nerchio didn't execute well on our stream. We did see, I think it was like TLO or someone used on another. Regardless, though, the double upgrades, not sure how beneficial they'll be right now. Army supply going to be the #1 priority. Right now, Nerchio, a lot of that supply he's got is in production. It's not actually on the field yet. So defending this fourth base, unlikely. This sucks because he was definitely investing in it. You know, the double extractors already came down. Most likely just going to have to cancel this. Even with the Hydras, I don't think we can save that, yeah.
Well, this is not a great army against Hydralisk, because the charge lot number isn't numerous, but charge is done, so that certainly does help.
Yeah,
there's a wide concave.
It burns a lot of the charge.
Oh no!
Yeah, so a couple mistakes there. First off, charge got burned on a bunch of the Lings. Not that that was an intentional mistake, just unfortunate reality. Secondly, leaving units behind on the recall. That sucks, but he still gets a lot of units out of there alive, opposed to losing everything. And let's be honest, if he's going to take that fight, he may have lost everything, but he would have traded out with Nerchio. It just wouldn't have been in any cost-effective manner. So still, despite the mistake of that recall, it was a better choice than standing his ground.
Yeah, that's certainly true. And that was an odd push-out that, of course, Nerchio wasn't expecting. He didn't have his units prepared to save his fourth base, but had Mana just immediately recalled afterwards, would have been really cool. But slight mistake there. I do have the Lurker Den, Hive, Fungals, the Passion Glands. Like, we got everything on the production tab for Nerchio here. Mana, a similar deal, though. Is like getting everything you would expect in a late game. PVZ, Storm, second Robo. The second Robo is actually, like, it seems to be a choice in Perdos's, where they get the second Robo super quickly before Storm and hold off on that for a long time, or to get Storm a little bit quicker. But losing the War Prism, not so good. That is supposed to, live forever, ideally, and just constantly threaten a counter.
Yeah. Very unfortunate for Mana. Not a great start. I think, of course, it's worth noting to everybody, there's two different factors going to be affecting everybody in today's groups. Number one, the relief of IEM being over. They no longer need to worry about hiding builds and holding back. Kind of something Bunny, unfortunately, got stuck in and then tweeted about not even get to use said builds in IEM, which was very sad. But that small factor aside, I do know that several of the players playing today are a little bit exhausted. You know, travel, the GIFs come back from IEM. I know Nerchio had to drive like 8 hours today or something like that. So, really, what's not meant to be an excuse, just more of a reasoning of saying it's actually understandable mistakes happen like this, because it is, again, right after a really big tournament where these guys are probably exhausted.
Yeah. We did have a couple of Phoenixes come out of that Stargates I mentioned earlier. Here come the Oracles, though, as well, which I think is definitely very helpful. Storm finished, so he's a lot of High Templars that are gathering a lot of Storm energy. It's going to be quite a big deal splash. Yet again, losing a War Prism.
I mean, Nerchio saw that with the Overlords, so Mana's not exactly being too sneaky and sly about it. Don't know what he's expecting. 8 Hydras turning into Lurkers while this goes on. Phoenixes get cleaned up. Mana does go for the attack on the left side of the map. Not a lot here. A couple of Lings and some Infestors. So really, this base would go down, but I feel like the second Nerchio decides to come back home, actually he's not even going to come back home. He's going to try and take a fight. The cannons are cute. They help a little bit, but not enough to stop this dead in its tracks. And these Zealots, they got to back away. He needs them to live. He needs to bulk up his units. Throwing them in 2 or 3 at a time like this is just not going to work.
Yeah, that's certainly true. But the army here is not very. It's not gonna last long.
Overcharge, actually, if he had gone for all the pylons with overcharges
exactly.
right away, he may have saved that. Mana kind of turning into an incidental base trade, losing everything on the other side of the map, not getting value for it. This, I don't know, this might cause him to tap out. He's not going to have much army supply left afterwards, that's for sure.
Yeah, that was very awkward. You know, that counter, whatever you want to call it, from Nerchio wasn't very buff, so of course the Hydras went down very quickly. But this attack got segmented so quickly. I guess he lost a bunch of High Templars. He certainly had more than 3 at the start when he pushed out. So that's unfortunate. And then a bunch of charge lots just went off kind of willy-nilly.
I think for him, this started out in what he thought was going to be an actual base trade, and that's why he split his units up to kill more buildings. But as we can see for both sides of the equation, that's not how it ended up. And this ends up being a very low army supply for Mana, and worse to the point, something that doesn't too effectively deal well with Lurkers. He's getting 2 Immortals at a time. That'll eventually shut it down. Oracle's way better than Observers in this situation, but Mana doesn't have the luxury of an extra base. Nerchio actually does.
Yeah. I mean, it's not mining, so like their income, you know, is actually pretty even right now. But it's just that Mana is having a tough time getting an army back up.
Income graph though shows that Nerchio has been not only ahead but ahead for a while.
Yeah, he's gotta get that 4th base up for a while. Taking the other 4th is not so bad. A good storm. If he had a couple more, that one almost completely misses.
The charge lots are not too bad, though. They start cleaning up the Hydras. Problem still remains with these Lurkers. He needs 4 Immortals, not 3, to take those one-shots.
Yeah. The barrier going down, he had to retreat with those other Immortals. So this one, he still has 2, but now the Ling Flood is going to be hard to deal with without charge lots.
Oh, yeah,
no
for
more
certain.
storms.
Ling Floods, I almost feel alone are going to win this game. He just doesn't have the supply to keep up with this. Another base abandoned, another very important base abandoned. He did pull several of the probes away, but not before losing 15. And Nerchio has just, I don't know, he's wrecked Mana in a very, again, this is that unconventional way that we were talking about before we even got into the game, right? Like, this isn't the Roach Ravager all in. This isn't, you know, Tempest or Disruptors. It is just an awkward game where Mana unfortunately can't beat Lurkers.
Yeah, Ling Hydra Lurker versus Immortal Storm. I think if everything had gone like, you know, if there wasn't like these weird base trades and the army getting scattered around, Mana would have done a lot better. I think he had a really nice composition, and Nerchio could have been in that problem we see a lot with Zerg, where they get stuck on a certain composition. But because everything happened the way it did, Mana, who depended entirely on having his forces together, helping each other out, is now looking to lose this game. Gonna take a decent army fight here. Some good storms. The Immortals taking down those Lurkers.
I mean, credit goes,
now.
He's been fighting at about a third of the army supply of Nerchio for the last several minutes. Credit goes to the fact that he's taking these fights, but I can only imagine if he was on even supply how much better this would look for him.
Yeah. 44 supply, you know, we aren't doing too well. I mean, Mana doesn't know about the other 4th base. It might be a reason he's not tapping out here, but there it goes.
Nerchio takes that first game, but Mana still fighting.
That wasn't a bad game. That was, I think, really boils down to 1.5 mistakes, I guess. Like,
well, I think the War Prisms constantly going down are really what shut Mana down. Without any sort of counterattack damage capabilities, I mean, as we saw, it forced him into this weird base trade type fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Base trade-esque, I guess you could call it. What's the next map so I can load the intro here?
Orbital Shipyard.
I kind of forgot that I have to, you know, it's almost like a vacation. We've had, what we've been casting has required very little in terms of production. No, I gotta get like back on that wagon here for Ting. Of course, we haven't talked a lot about Ting. We'll probably do as we get into this next game. Apologies in advance for the sniffles and for the nose blowing today, guys. Again, I'm quite sick, but muscling it out for the cast.
Here we go.
Yep. Okay, map intro time, baby. We'll see you all here in just a moment for Orbital Shipyard. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Game number 2 here for the Ting Open. Haven't really talked about this much. We'll get into it in a moment. Spawning the bottom left side of Orbital Shipyard, though, we've got the red Protoss. It's Team Liquid's Mana.
The top right as the blue Zerg, he is Nerchio.
But before we do that, gotta give some shoutouts because we missed several of the resubs. So Lucidia89, Surfcat, and Treeline all resubbed to the channel, and thank you guys kindly for your continued support. Ting is a U.S. mobile phone service, guys. They're sponsoring this tournament $5,000 strong. And all they're hoping for is to convince you guys that their service is good enough for you to check out. My best suggestion would be go to bttv.ting.com because it shows them that you came from this tournament. It shows them that advertising on BaseTradeTV is worthwhile, and more to the point, you'll get $25 in credits. So make sure to check them out. But of course, we got videos and more things to talk about them for them later. We also have the smartphone winner. I am the only person. ZvP doesn't even know who won. I've got that in my email. We'll announce it probably around the winners match of the group. But this is, of course, Game 2, and Nerchio leads 1-0 if you're just tuning in.
So the winners match will be the fourth match of the day.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a little bit later on, like hours later on. Hopefully the winner will actually be in chat by then.
Yeah. Well, I'm assuming the reason I chose to do it a little bit later is because it was going to have to be a U.S. winner, right? So
that's
ideally,
true.
they're probably here later rather than early because it is still fairly early.
Yeah.
I will say, though, you know how you know you're sick?
How?
It's not the runny nose or anything like that. It's the more blankets, less blankets dilemma. I'm currently wearing a hoodie because it's freezing cold in my room, but now I'm way too warm. But the second I take this off, I'm going to be like shivering cold. I can't win.
I get that, yeah.
Oh, but maybe if I applied the Zombie Rub medicinal one sleep off tactic.
Maybe it would work.
I think he's still up, by the way, for the resub. So for Nerchio, obviously not taking his back base and Mana getting a patrol for a while, maybe it would have been annoying to deny, but more importantly, he gets a good idea on the timing. Pylon comes down, but there's already Lings out, so this will only buy him a few more seconds. Information is power, though, and knowing, again, that the third base is still not down goes a long way. Queen does snipe off the probe, but he also scouts that there's not a lot of gas being taken, and there's no second gas in play. So for Mana, I'm not sure what he plans to read into this, but what he sees is that there's not going to be a lot to shoot up with the lack of gas, and decides to go for a Stargate.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of glossed over it last game because we had so much other stuff to talk about. But Nerchio to go for like a one-base build last game, which, you know, we talked about Lair Crest being, you know, definitely really popular for all lanes, speeding all lanes off of 2 bases. So it doesn't surprise me that Nerchio went for a gas build again here, getting that speed pretty quickly, but it's not going to be as scary unless he goes for Overlord drops, because you're not going to bust this one ramp and then get into the natural like you would be able to on Lair. But Overlords certainly are scary, and if I was a Protoss who scouted gas, you know, from a Zerg, I'd be more than aware of that, especially with the 2 Overlords so nicely positioned as they are. The Stargate Opener can help deal with that, of course. If you get Phoenixes, you can just kill the Overlords and never have to worry about it in your life, but he's going for that Oracle, so that's not really his worry. I think the only thing he has to worry about is getting a third too quickly. You know, not letting the Ling just get an immediate cancel on it because he doesn't have a lot of units right now.
Yeah, and as we see, he was looking to start popping out that direction, but has to kind of pull back for the time being. Oracle can be used in a couple different ways here now. One could be actually securing his third base if he wants to play more defensively, or he can still dive across the map and try and go for some drone kills offensively. Unfortunately, it looks like Nerchio will still see that with the Overlord either way, so the Oracle goes across the map and he'll know what's going on. Spore Claws for safety, Queen's in position. Yeah, there's actually 2 Queens in one of these positions, so this shouldn't be too bad for damage.
Shouldn't be any damage, really.
The main is only the Spore Crawler. You can actually hold position above the Geyser and probably kill several. But yeah, I can't stick around for much. It only gets 1 kill.
Okay, well, it's definitely worth keeping that Oracle alive. There's no need to sacrifice it, since it is still very useful units. I got double Evo chambers, devil dogs. Evo chambers with just Lings right now. There's no Roach Warren, so I do wonder if he's gonna get double upgraded Lings and go into maybe Infestors. A cool style that, you know, comes back every once in a while. That's just, you know, the double upgraded Lings are so surprising in their strength. And it is going to be that Spire. Okay, so double upgraded Lings and a Spire. Both basically are good, you know. Infestors, they take care of charge lots, take care of Archons. They even help against Adepts, too. But Spire, well, Spire is just, you know, obnoxious at all matchups.
Yeah, there's no situation I think anyone says, like, boy, I'm really glad I'm fighting Mutas.
Yeah, this is so easy. Going for that Hydralisk Den, I gotta imagine is going to be turning into a Lurker Den pretty quickly. To back up those mutas, because I don't think he's going to really commit to mutas, but we'll see. Like, the problem is that even even Mana is not really sure if he sees both the Hydralisk Den and the Spire, like which one you're actually going to commit to. Is it going to be 20 Mutas and no Hydralisk, 8 Mutas and a lot of Hydralisk, or I'm not going to use the Spire at all? You know, if I was only going to get Corruptors if you were going to get Phoenixes.
Yeah, well, actually, this is what's nice about the Oracle. Like, it needs, it's not just he wants, but he needs to scout what the emphasis on Nerchio's composition will be. But we got to give some hype. We got a brand new sub to kick off today. So the first one coming in, the bot didn't pick it up for some reason, but I see it in chat. Hitchens92, we got you, man. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel.
Woo.
But okay, this is gonna be really interesting. He still goes for charge, and I think charge is not bad. Not because you're worried about the Hydras per se, because it is good against Hydras. Charge is actually a lot better at shredding drone lines with Zealots than Adepts are. Adepts are kind of cool and they look so broken in some situations, but truth be told, when it comes to 4 to 6 units at a time for harass through Warp-ins and Warp Prisms, I do think Zealots always take the cake. It's worth noting, though, too, I didn't realize Mana actually has no upgrades going for him, other than, I guess, tech-wise here. There's no +1, no armor, no weapons. Forge is only just coming down, actually. I'm wondering if this was intentional or a mistake.
We'll see, I guess, if he uses it. The Warp Prism coming in here, I mean, I think these units really want to see what's popping out of those eggs. Seeing no Mutalisk yet, trying to kill your Warp Prism, probably gonna, you know, is actually a scout in of itself, if he pays attention. Sees all the Hydralisk, Lynx, Force 2.
Yeah, and the Lurker Den, right there. Being,
yeah, but, you know, even then, like, you see 6 Mutas with that Lurker Den. There's no Mutas whatsoever. Like, you really actually did not use that Spire. It's just there.
Well, the Mass Immortal count on the ground, this is why the matchups really changed up, and this is why things like Spires are more deadly. Again, maybe it's for Broodlords later on, maybe it's for Mutalisks now. But the point of it still remains that you have to really go one way or the other for Protoss. For a long time, I think what made Protoss really annoying to fight against was you had them going Blink Stalkers as the composition. Something to shoot up and down. Very versatile, very mobile units, and you couldn't really catch them off guard with a tech swap the same way you can now. But nowadays, Lurkers require Immortals, Blink Stalkers don't cut it, and of course Immortals being so heavily invested into units that only shoot down, that's why some things we're seeing a lot of games with Mutas swaps. But Nerchio's actually making Overlord drops, by the way.
Yeah. I saw that in the production tab, I wondered where that was, but that's pretty odd.
Nice to see it in the production tab too, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, Revelation did see this attack coming from a while away, or far away, and this is not going to be the most difficult army to take on.
No, not with a good spread. He actually came in a pre-concave for that too.
Yeah. The other, I think he was only scared that there was another attack going on in the 4th base, but there is not. Just an observer covering this.
Nerchio actually has not great army for fighting Mana. Mana is like strictly anti-ground right now, and that's fine. I mean, Phoenix coming out now, Storm's on the way. He'll have a little bit to deal with some air transition if it comes, but Nerchio, I really love that he's not dedicating, and it's more of like a feign, because he's trying to fake out this aggression so Mana's not bothering him while he goes for Hive. Unfortunately, it looks like there will be continued harassment, though. I don't know about this. I think unloading Zealots is probably better than warping them in, but he's going to try and distract at the 3rd while the Warp Prism goes to the main. It's kind of clever.
Yeah, I guess this... I hope to see the Spire turn into a greater Spire, finally see some use out of it with this Hive finishing up. And Mana would be able to see that if Nerchio starts it immediately. Or, well, actually, maybe not. But they deal with the Zealots to the front really quickly. And these ones don't get much scouting or damage done. Any damage done. These Overlord drops have nothing in them. So, that's a little disappointing. We finally have Corruptors on the way. It's going to take care of the Warp Prism, as well as, of course, running into Broodlords of that Greater Spire. Mana already on his way to Tempests. I mean, he saw that Spire so early on, and then, you know, there's no Mutas, so there's only one thing they're going to be able to do.
This is so sick. This is
otherwise.
A fake out of Nerchio. Mana's thinking like, oh, I just caught these Overlords. So sick, so ready, but Nerchio's like, nope, sucker, you took the bait. I'm going for the 4th. Hook, line, and sinker. And he's going to shut this down. No opposition whatsoever.
Yeah, that was quite unfortunate for Mana. He could have just dealt with those Overlords with only the Phoenixes that he had, but
that's so
loses
sick.
the 4th base, saves the probes at least. Loses 2 there.
Yeah.
But this is a very important base. He is trying to transition while Nerchio is transitioning, and you know, Nerchio's are on 4 bases, could get to a 5th.
So before anyone kind of goes like, Mana, what a noob, right? I mean, Lurker drops are actually a thing, and you can't let those go uncontested. If 3 Overlords drop 6 Lurkers in your base, it's dead. Doesn't matter whether you got a couple of things to clean them up or not. So Mana's choice to react to it is not an overreaction at all. It's just so unfortunate that he misread Nerchio's really sick bait. Like, that was so cool. I was wondering what he morphed those for. Like, I think I really like that. I really like that a lot.
We got a couple of units going into the third base for Nerchio, but there's already Hydras there, so the harassment of Mana is not doing anything at all, really.
No.
A couple more Zealots go off to the left. It's going to be spotted by a couple of Creep Tumors. There's already some... okay, those are Spore Crawlers, so never mind about the stack defense, but a couple of Lurkers already go back, so...
Yeah, this is actually something where Mana, perhaps just cleaning up Creep may have been better off in this situation. Gonna catch some of Nerchio's army. This is a pretty expensive army. Forces us to lock in some Lurker kills. In fact, the 3 Lurkers remaining can easily be dealt with by the Immortals alone. Unless he wants to be awkward about it. What? Move commands on top of him? Okay, that was really weird. Meanwhile, other side of the map, those Zealots do get caught. Now, Mana's supply still goes strong. Like, really strong. Still on 102, not caught in that, like, 30 versus 90 like we saw last game. And, I mean, we're seeing Tempest come out. We're going to have Archons behind this. If Mana can get, I'd say, like, 6-something Tempests out, I'm going to actually feel pretty good about his position in this game. Like, Nerchio's doing all these really cool tricks, sure, but unfortunately, a Tempest army for him right now doesn't seem feasible. There's no Vipers to abduct them. There's not enough Hydras to just kind of walk through an army to stutter them down. I mean, the Tempest can shell away from afar, but he doesn't have that number yet, and the attack is coming.
Yeah, that's it's going to be scary, but I don't know if Nerchio is really going to want to go ahead and just push in entirely here, or just kind of make a slow siege up. He's pushing pretty deep. There's not a lot of Corruptors to cover these Broodlords, so the Tempest, there they go, they're starting to focus fire on the Broodlords. Time Warp actually used, but on things that aren't going to move, so it looks a little silly. Oh, they're moving down, there you go.
Can't really,
there you go.
Now, if Time Warp slowed attack speed, that'd be
Lurkers. Sick. Dude, that'd actually be a good buff for it. But anyways, that's never going to happen. The Broodlords have all gone down, but the Lurker count is just so large, you know?
He's maintained a lot. He's maintained a lot of the Immortals through this. Storm's blanketing those Hydras. I mean, this is potentially still going to be Mana's fight, but he's lost control of a third. His fourth is trying to mine now. I mean, he's still not exactly in control of this game, but he is going to win this fight if he does this correctly at least.
Well, now he doesn't have to actually take on the Lurkers, you know? The Tempest will be able to take them on, and if they unburrow to leave, that's when the Immortals come in and start really killing them one at a time. But there you go. These Lurkers are pretty expensive. Now you can try and chase... There's nothing to protect them, although you gotta figure there's some reinforcements coming out here for Nerchio. But Nerchio, yeah, that was a pretty expensive army. That was a good fight for Mana, who saved most of his army during that. Now, once again, his fourth is under siege, but Zealot's on top of the one Lurker that's available. That's a nice start. This Hydra will be able to take care of everything else, and that High Templar does not have Storm. The Nexus could be target fired, and it is going to be, so unfortunately, Mana back down the 3 bases.
You know, the thing kind of goes, though, for Nerchio... Like, okay, these are great base snipes. He needs to be doing this. But his army didn't win versus Mana once. He threw a whole army away just to barely trade out for a base, and he didn't even kill the third. He just shut down the Robo and a couple of pylons, right? Killing that fourth is great, but Nerchio is also in this weird situation where he doesn't have the greatest future income for him. Like, he's on a base above Mana right now. Okay, that's kind of cool. But... if he can't actually beat the army once, he's not going to beat it 3 times or 4 times. And these Zealots are taking a while to go down, so the hatchery actually gets killed. Nice pick off out of Mana. And he's starting his slow climb to that comeback. But without a 4th base, without an actual mining base to rely on, Mana's got this great standing army, but he can't repair the losses.
Yeah, I mean, that's the sum of the game right now, is that Nerchio, might still have like another army in his bank. Mana does not, but Mana has been taking really good fights. I mean, originally the resources lost was really in favor of Nerchio. It's evened up a little bit, although these charge outs going down actually do bump it up again for Nerchio. But this is a game that I think Mana can still win, but it is a very difficult game. Really, Nerchio is taking a lot of control. He's getting a lot of upgrades. He's actually fulfilling his entire tech tree with these Ultralisks, too. The Ultralisks can be an odd choice because they're so expensive and they don't do well against Immortals, and you know the Protoss army is going to have a lot of Immortals. But say that, I don't know, like they most of them die. They're still going to be good. They're still like, they can soak up a lot of hits from them, that's for sure, too. These Lynx don't have Adrenoglands yet, but they are 2-1.
Yeah, Mana can't abandon this position. He has to lock down this 4th. If he completely replies with everything to stop these Lynx, he loses the 4th and the 3rd simultaneously. Storm's going to be great here. Holds onto this base. SimCity not going to be good enough.
Yeah.
Other side of the map, the Immortals catch a lot of the Lurkers moving to this front line. Storm's blankets some of the Hydras, and Mana takes a great defensive spot.
Yeah, unfortunately lost his Archons, who just got, AI to the front right there, but... That was still pretty good. He keeps that army supply. It's never been in the lead for mana, but it has been at least 20 or 30 within. I think with Splash and Tempest getting some free shots and just the power of Immortals, honestly. That's actually something that he can deal with. But going out on creep to a concave, that's when Nerchio will have the best option to actually attack. But, his lurkers are not in this fight. This is all about the Hydralis trying to get a concave here. This is start off great.
It's like a Terran fighting away from their siege tanks. Not how that should be done.
Yeah, so mana, that could have been a lot riskier if he had just pushed forward, another 3 spaces or whatever it is in StarCraft. So he would have been in a lot of trouble, but ends up taking a decent fight, brings Nerchio back even further down to almost his army supply level. But Nerchio, he got a 5th. That one that went down so long ago is back up and running.
So this kind of brings me back to, oh gosh, the probe transfer, to last game, right? Mana fought 3 really good battles on a third of the army supply of Nerchio. This game, he does get to fight on more even footing, but Nerchio's changed his tactics up, where he's not trying to take mana in head-on engagements. We've seen it since 10 minutes ago with that fake drop, right? He really wants to keep mana looking left while he hits right. And while that right hook's not that strong, it is chipping away at mana slowly and slowly. And every pylon that goes down is not replaced. These gateways at the front were not replaced. He might be better off making a full wall off on his main, because he's only got gateways here. There's actually nothing here that needs to leave this base.
He's got a weak hook. Never heard that one before.
Okay, whatever. But, for real, actually, I think if Mana actually just walled off the top of his ramp and put, 2 cannons behind it, he would never have to worry about any of this. He'd then be able to focus on his mining bases. Because the only production he has that comes out of the ground is anything he actually warps into the main.
Yeah, no, I think it's a huge problem right now. He has there's an observer, actually, and I like that observer positioning for sure, but still, by the time the Lings go past that observer, Lings are pretty damn fast. They're already in your main base. Having a wall off would probably give him a lot of peace of mind. Nerchio is starting to accrue a bank. He actually went for a second Spire, which is interesting, as he hasn't really... they made Broodlords once, but it isn't a lot of upgrades on it, and I do wonder about his plans. He just spent his entire bank on 80 Lings, though. Wow, that's not what I expected.
There's Storms still aplenty, but I don't think those Lings are for fighting Zambria, but I think they're for base trading.
I hope so. Get do too well against Archons.
Actually, I think 80 Lings would beat out Archons, but not the Storms. Not the Storms. So Nerchio loses his mining bases, mobility being on his side. He's already on the other side of the map. Lings are fast as hell. Ultras are stuck in... Whoa, they're doing some inappropriate stuff. Lurker, Ultralisk, crossbreeding. Oh god, can you imagine an Ultralisk with the range of a Lurker? Oh fuck no.
You know what they'd probably do? They'd probably go underground and then raise up.
No.
That'd
you know what they
be
do?
So weird.
Actually, first off, this army, those storms are actually great. He actually doesn't manage to hit any of his units, gets most of the Lings, but unfortunately does have to storm his own units at the end of the day. This lets him take out everything, and Nerchio just cleans up. Jesus.
80 Lings with 1-3, but 3 Carapaths.
Yeah, funny enough,
lands especially.
This is the one rare instance in Protoss. If Mana had upgrades for armor, that would have been a non-issue for him. But GG, Nerchio takes a 2-0 lead.
I'm so happy those Lings did so much.
I was gonna say though, you know what would happen though if a Lurker and Ultra was actually crossbred? You'd have some bullshit where the Lurker hook thing would attach to its tusks, and they'd be able to detach and throw them long like a hook, like Roadhog's hook from Overwatch, and you just hook people and Kaiser Blade from far away, reel it back, and then launch it again.
Is that what's gonna happen?
That's the Rift Logic approach to it, at least.
Ooh.
Meanwhile, behind them, they got 8 stacked up roaches on a totem pole, providing the anti-air for the Lurker. Ultralisks.
Of course.
The Ultralisks. Alright, third map in the series is going to be a gold-based one. We got Prion Terraces coming up. And, I gotta tell you guys, I'm not feeling so good. Only one game in. Today is going to be a tough day. But if we keep getting good games like this, I can certainly deal. I just really hope that my sniffles and my nose blowing is not too annoying for the stream. So sorry, guys. But yeah, we're ready to go when they are. Quick answer in chat because someone's been asking all day, when does Group Stage 2 start? Tomorrow. But Brian Terraces, we'll see you soon. Well, that's cool. I'm gonna give a shout out to I guess one of our other sponsors. They don't sponsor this tournament. I want to make that very clear first off. But Corsair just tweeted about one of our subscribers, Das Tier. So that's pretty cool.
Cool.
All right, we are getting into game number 3. It is 2-0 currently for this player here in the top left, and if he wins this one, it's all over. Ladies and gentlemen, the blue Zerg player, Nerchio.
In the bottom right, is the red Protoss. It's liquid mana.
I love everyone starts spamming that Ace Loot emote. The Ultralisk and the Lurker were caught doing some shenanigans. Now, for mana, again, this kills me to watch, right? Because this guy is taking good fights in like underdog situations constantly. But the problem is, the score still says 2-0 for his opponent. So no matter how well he scraps out and fights, unless he gets a win here, he's going to be out of the bracket really quick and in the losers match. However, my one caveat would be, and I would love to see him do this, we've been seeing a lot of Protoss do Adept all-ins on this map. The extra income, the short rush distance, the ability to get the Adepts just transferred over immediately, has proven to be a snowball effect that's hard for all Zerg players to stop.
Yeah, that is true. I think Mana, though, was thinking about the early game here with this really early probe scouts. You know, he once again went for the pylon on the bottom, which Lerlac is such a wide ramp. This is, I feel, not as risky if you can wall off like he is right now. But, you know, Nerchio is up 2 games. A third game with an early pool would have been fine. Like, I would have been like, yeah, that seems like a good move, you know? Try and end it pretty quickly, try and get that 3-0, but that was a Nerchio's choice. And Mana, you know, he scouted it. He's going to want to keep on scouting the third base, of course, to make sure that it's not some 2-base shenanigans, but he's got to feel at least comfortable for now, and now we can, you know, start talking about those Adepts running in and what his choice is for the mid-game. That is a large transfer of probes.
Well, that's a gold base worth transferring to. Now, Mana is going to check out this gold and almost once again get that block. This be a little annoying for Nerchio.
Yeah, I didn't block long. Yeah, Twilight Council comes down here. See if that is for Resonating Glaives.
I would have to imagine that's the case.
I think so.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait, he lost an Overlord?
Did he? I don't know. Well, there was a stalker, but...
Yeah, I guess the stalker got the kill. I was just not expecting it. You don't see this. Normally it's just a lot of Adepts early on. My bad for not looking for it, guys. But, yeah, the Overlord going down actually really hurts Nerchio this early. Not supply blocked quite yet. But
okay, so, yeah. I mean, yeah, we brought up Naniwa earlier and how his Blink Stalkers did a lot, but if his Blink Stalkers didn't do anything, or they did something because of this, Dark Templars, you know, they either started the fight or they ended the fight.
I'm pretty jaded on this. Also, not going for the overcharge, a little bit risky. That might get really low, because he can't afford to let that get scouted. You know, you snipe the Overlord, and this maybe cause and effect, right? Like, maybe he was setting up for something else, but sniping the Overlord meant Nerchio wasn't going to scout, so he goes for this. Regardless, you can't let that get scouted. That was really risky. That Adept didn't need to die.
Didn't need to die, had a family.
Well, she had a family. There's no it pronoun here. It's clearly a girl.
I don't know. She had a feminine voice? God.
What? No, Adepts are literally girls!
I don't know, man. You don't know Protoss genders?
You're right. Okay, she was clearly one with the Kala, alright?
Yeah, excuse you. The third base coming down here is not going to be attempted to be denied by Nerchio. He doesn't have any lings. Not many lings, anyways, to deny, and he's just droning. So Mana gets a third base, hopefully is able to secure it because of some DT harass. Now this is only a single DT, which looks a little silly.
I'm not sold on the DTs, though, to be honest. I really think this is the wrong type of move to go for. Not saying my suggestion of the Adepts earlier were great, but this is something where he does, because it's only one, you know, this is going to tip Nerchio off right away. That Spore Caller sees this. Now there's going to be Spore Callers at every base. There's going to be Overseers out. There's going to be a struggle to actually use DTs from this point on.
Yeah. Well, if it's a, you know, the Dark Shrine, really, from Wings of Liberty, it almost always felt like it was an all-in. And, you know, back in Wings of Liberty, there was rarely any late games until we went to here. But
also, Dark Shrines were way more expensive back then, too.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. They were reduced in cost specifically for that late game, where they said they didn't see it often enough. But then, of course, once it's reduced in cost, everyone uses it, you know, for cheese. So it has become, like, in PvP especially, it's not the all-in it used to be. In you know, every other matchup, it's not as all-in. To see one DT, like, I agree with you, like, even if it was a macro DT build, it's still like, why would you alert them to it? You know, and it's only gonna get like 5 kills. Why not just go for the 4 or whatever that you can afford, and really try and wreck some, damage. But oh well. Yeah, he'll have that in his back pocket. Nerchio will know that. You know, as much as you prepare for DTs, late game, 20 minutes into this game, there's not going to be any defense when 5 DTs decide to snipe your sport crawler. It's going to be just annoying all around.
Well, before the attack goes off, I need to exclaim Wunderbar. As Riamar donates $20 to the stream. Says, hi, you two. In chat, woo! I'm feeling talky today.
Oh, yeah, you didn't say just hi.
I know. Normally it's just hello.
Hi. Hello?
Are you feeling walky with that talky, Riamar? Oh, we love Riamar. Big, awesome, long-time supporter of the channel.
Yes, he's cool. Big-time supporter of us in Germany.
Yes. Oh man, he saved our asses, man. I can still say, like, without lying, there's been no situation where I've ever been saved by a fan as badly as
yeah.
in Germany.
What did you do with all the stuff that I left you, like my fan, and you just leave it at the hotel?
Yeah, I mean, like, I figured they'd benefit from it, to be honest.
Yeah.
That becomes their luxury suite, the one with the 2 rooms with the fans.
With the fans.
Like, suddenly, prices get jacked up through the roof. Like, oh, Vez, these rooms have fans now, so, 4 stars.
That's the most appropriate use of your German accent so far.
The lady at the counter there was so mean every time I wanted the internet cards. That's all I really remember.
Was she?
Okay, so Archons being used for the Dark Templar. I've gone over this several times in the past. Yeah, this is actually a somewhat cost-effective way to do this, especially on a map like Preon Terraces. Your gas income's still the same amount, so I know when I say this is cheaper, people get mad at me, but really I'm talking in terms of gas specifically. You've got all these extra minerals. Archons through Dark Templar are going to cost slightly more minerals, slightly less gas. Boom. Best way to use them. Of course, Archons can be great for fighting just straight up. They don't need a lot of upgrades. They come with a lot of health. They come with a lot of damage, and they splash too. But as the Lings get taken out, the Immortals actually don't have the Force Fields to cover this.
Oh, dear.
Eats the Corsair Bows to the face, and Mana is just not going to be able to take this fight. There's no way. There's just no way.
Yeah,
for a moment, this looked all right, and then he takes those Corsair Bows. The Force Fields miss. This is over. Everything dies. Rip.
He does have a counterattack, but I think you're right. Not Mana's dead, but that DT build, like I put a lot of faith, in the pro gamers.
You know what? There's no overseers. Bring the DTs.
Oh, well, there's overlords. Like don't get this pushed back because of DT.
Right, but I mean, like, this is actually Mana's chance to defend. He pushes this back. He saves the 3rd.
Oh dear God.
Natural base can get DTs to save this as well. Eventually, there's going to be overseers, and eventually detection will be here. But he buys himself some time. Meanwhile, he kills the base in the main of Nerchio, goes for the natural base, so he's not going to get this. But oh man, DTs. DTs, baby. No, unfortunately, here comes the Overseers. He doesn't have anything to snipe them, so that's probably going to be game. But a few more seconds of sweet, sweet life.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, oh my God, this would have been the best comeback ever, and DTs would have been so BS, but it looked almost promising, but it's not going to be enough. Oh, there goes the Robos. But I was going to say, put a lot of faith in Protoss. The DTs, that one single DT looked odd, and you didn't have a lot of faith in it. I was like, I think he could actually do something. But then the Blink follow-up is what actually threw me for a loop. I was like, oh, maybe he's going to go into Blink Disruptor. But he used the 7 Blink Stalkers to die in the middle of the map with a poor recall, and then tried to go into, charge Immortal, which just felt way too late. And obviously it was. Nerchio was already ready to kill him. Still, overall an odd flow of game.
Alright, I have got to go find us Lily Canine and Marine Lord. So, this tournament, of course, is sponsored by TING, everybody. I hope you've been enjoying it so far. Again, we've got several more groups, and it's worth noting our goal for this was to get 40 people signed up for TING. Excuse me one sec.